All right, good morning. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited to hang out with all of you this morning. And my name is Kim. If you don't know who I am often with the kids, helping in that area. And then you probably, if you've been to any of our events like Easter or anything, you've seen me running around a lot. So I'm super excited this morning. Boog invited me to speak a little bit with you guys through the lens of the Enneagram, which is something that I'm super passionate about and I've done a lot of work in. And so I was excited, but then that's a lot, right? Like I only have a little bit of time. I'm not going to try and tell you guys, and unlock your number for you or anything. So I get to talk about it this morning through the lens of loving God and specifically my experience in the Enneagram and loving God. And I get to talk about it next week through the lens of loving people. And with these as the the pillars of who our branches community is, then I think it's just a perfect way to kind of talk about it and explore it in that way. I have a slide for you. If you're not familiar with the Enneagram is an ancient system of personality typing. It types everyone into 9 different personality types. You might be thinking, well, that seems like you can't possibly fit everyone in 9 types, but don't worry, there's countless variations and considerations at play. There are multiple layers. In fact, the more I learn about it, the more I feel like I'm like, oh wait, there's still a lot more. So we are all uniquely us. So you don't have to worry about that. But yeah, the Enneagram it is exploring 9 different personality types. That's 9 ways of seeing or 9 ways of being in the world. It shows us in a way that's exploring the very best parts of us, and it's exposing how those same very best parts of us are and can be the worst parts of us. So there's work to do within the Enneagram. It's not one of the type of tests that just tells you something for fun and then lets you, be excited about who you are. It's really pointing you towards something greater, which is why I love it and why I connected so much with it. I included a little bit of information within this diagram. It's probably too much information, so I don't want it to be too confusing, but I did want to just explore the idea or introduce the idea that within these 9 numbers, everything's broken into like 3s. So there are a lot of different patterns within 3. And that is like, if you are thinking about the 3 centers of intelligence, which is thinking, feeling, and doing, the Enneagram does break all of us into one of those 3 categories. Our stances are how we stand or how we carry ourselves in the world. And those are an aggressive stance, dependent stance, and a withdrawing stance. Everybody has a way of standing or being in the world. And I would say aggressive stance doesn't necessarily mean, super aggressive or angry, as much as it means that these people might be perceived as coming against somebody else or really standing independently. A dependent stance person is really looking towards other people to be validated and a part of. And the withdrawing stance is someone who might be pulling away. You might say, oh, that person's really introverted, or maybe they don't like me, They're always trying to separate themselves. That might be somebody who's falling in a withdrawing stance. So I'm just giving you a little bit of a language. The Enneagram has become super widely known in the last 10 years probably, which lends itself to some obstacles. So I just want to explore really quickly some ground rules. I really think it's important to make sure that I'm coming up against any misinformation or information that can just be used as a party trick. And so there are some clarifying points that I have. And the Enneagram is determined by our underlying motivations. So that is why it's really difficult to identify your number just based on your behavior. There are a lot of people who might have similar behaviors, but the underlying motivation could be completely different. And that is where our personality type lies within the motivation itself and not the behavior. We should really refrain from assigning numbers to the ones we love. This is hard. And I mean, obviously, I know a lot of people's numbers. I've figured it out. I've been doing this for a little while. And so I would say if we can't refrain from in our heads identifying people, let's not say it out loud. That's somebody else's journey to have if they choose to have it. And so, and especially with our children, I don't think it's really doing them any favors to name them within a category. Stances are a great place to sit for that because you can really speak to your children and your loved ones by knowing your own self and then by accepting and allowing them within their stance if it's withdrawing or dependent or aggressive. So that's a great place to start. Our Enneagram number doesn't change. It's actually in place by a very young age. So I have a really great picture of me. I know, quite precious. So I'll tell you a story. At the tender age of 3 years old, I was faced with a new player in my life, my mom's new boyfriend and my future stepdad. This is actually a photo of me as a flower girl at their wedding. And as one might expect, he came bearing a gift to meet me, and he was eager for my affection and acceptance. And it was a box of crayons, like a big box of crayons, not the little box of crayons, like 64 colors. And as I sat there with the gift and the box of crayons laying open next to me, I stared him in the eyes and I broke every crayon in half. And then I said to him, "Grandma, buy me more." So this is 3 years old me. This is saying something inside of me is always asking who's in charge. Should they be? That's what I want to know. And this is what I mean when I say it's determined by a young age. There's something already happening. So you can add to this. I'm an Enneagram 8. I'm assertive, independent. I'm action-oriented. I'm straight talking. These are some of my best qualities. I love that about me. I can be received as blunt, confrontational, cynical, overly intense. Shocking. I know. And my repressed center of intelligence is feeling, and I have a lot of work to do in regards to bringing up any feeling. That leads me to our last rule that I want to talk about, which is we don't want to use the information we learn about ourselves as an excuse for bad behavior. Naming these truths about myself will never excuse my bad behavior. In fact, if I know about it, it does quite the opposite. So when a coworker tells me that they feel dismissed by me during staff meetings because I'm quickly shooting down their ideas, or I'm just shrugging off what they have to say, I'm moving at a quick pace and they don't have a place within that agenda, I don't get to just be like, well, that's me, hashtag Enneagram 8. That's not okay. My actions and the way I treat people are my responsibility. And the Enneagram isn't shining this light of directed self-awareness just so I can continue on as is. So I learned about the Enneagram in 2017, and I really liked it. And then we got to dive into it a little bit more as a staff. Boog was super encouraging to have me explore and learn more, and I was just consuming everything I could get my hands on. I really was resonating with what it was saying. And I took a couple tests online, and it gave me the wrong number, but it was close enough that I was like, oh, yeah, this kind of fits, which is why you will probably hear me say, oh, please don't take a test. However, like through a more in-depth, then I was able to kind of uncover my actual number, which is an Enneagram 8, and I was able to start attending workshops. I have an author and speaker that I just like adore. I think that she does an amazing job of teaching through storytelling. Suzanne Stabile, I have books up here of hers, and I was able to read her books, attend her live workshops. And one of the things that she put out is a series teaching each number in about like 45 minutes per number, right? And so I bought those audio files and I listened to them, and I already knew my number. And when she teaches, she always teaches 8s first. And so as I was listening to it in the car, and she's telling stories, and she has a daughter who's an Enneagram 8, and she's telling stories to kind of it helps you like find yourself within a number. And there was this story that she told, and as a point that she was trying to make, she said, you know, an Enneagram 8 most likely won't trust more than the number of people they can count on their hands in an entire lifetime. And it hit me, and I counted on my hands, who do I really trust in my life? And I couldn't fill up a hand. And it just like something shifted in me, knowing what I knew, that was like an opening for God in my life. That was like I was in the Trader Joe's parking lot crying, listening to this audio file, like, God, help me. Like, this isn't how we're designed to be, right? The armor that I have built up to protect myself is no longer protecting me. And I needed help to open up and to get a little chink in the armor. But I didn't know it. And I think that's what the Enneagram gives me, right? I didn't know it. I didn't see it. I didn't see it as a problem. In 21 and 22, I was accepted into an intensive Enneagram cohort that was led by Suzanne Stabile. I was like awestruck. And I had the privilege of going to Texas 4 times throughout the year, meeting with a group of people, about 30 people, all learning the Enneagram, all variety, every number represented. And we were able to learn not only from her, but from each other. Because something I love about her is she is teaching from a place of, yes, she studied for 20 plus years under a mentorship with Richard Rohr, and she has a lot of information, and she can only speak from her number. So she places a high value in talking to people who are your number, to learn from people, and to learn from other people and their numbers to actually gain real perspective. So that's kind of like my journey up to now. And what the Enneagram is truly offering us is a gift of transformation. Transformation is when we allow the layers that we've used to insulate ourselves to fall away. We don't get to power through or make transformation happen. It's something we have to allow, which is why it's hard to describe and it's hard to teach. I would say transformation occurs when we work towards change and growth, while also allowing that which is holding us back to fall away. So it's a paradox. It's a paradox of our participation within a complete surrender. And it's hard to wrap your head around, but I think self-awareness is opening that door into understanding how God loves us and how we can better love God. Personality is the layers of protection that we use as our defense to make our way in the world. I wouldn't say it's a bad thing. It helped us, it protected us, it guarded us, it shielded us, and we layered it and we layered it. And maybe it's not doing that anymore, right? It works till it doesn't work. So this idea of our personality being who we are, the Enneagram is actually saying, no, this is who you are not. This is who you have built, and your true self is within. So the work, the Enneagram work that I do is to allow all of that to fall away a little bit at a time. And unfortunately, we don't arrive. Spoiler alert, it's like a lifetime work. Love how God does that. So if these are true, then the work is within transformation. And self-awareness offers me a choice to allow transformation in my life. You know, God's often giving us opportunities for growth. How many times have we prayed for patience, and then we don't get the thing that we've been waiting for, and God's like, practice patience. You know, God's always offering us opportunities to connect and to grow. But when we're acting within our predictable, habitual, patterned behaviors, it's not serving us in the way that we think it is. It's like we're running on autopilot. And how can we disrupt it if we can't see it? So the lines connecting these numbers are actually showing us numbers that we go to in stress or security. When I say go to, all I mean is that we're picking up some characteristics that are within that number. And it's helping us. Like, we need what that number has to offer us and what it has to give to us. It takes practice to make the connections and to have the self-awareness of when we make these moves. But the Enneagram can show us the patterns of behavior. And that's how God can work with a true and meaningful transformation and allow some of it to fall away. As I said, I'm an Enneagram 8. I tend towards directness. I'm typically moving at a fast pace, and I can miss the underlying needs or meaning in what people are trying to communicate with me. I'm outgoing. I can easily fill up the space in the room. And in stress, I move to 5. And that just means I'm going to pick up some characteristics within 5 that I need when I'm in a stressful situation. I didn't mention, but it's worth mentioning, that within our number, why the Enneagram is so fluid is because we're always operating within healthy, average, or unhealthy space. No person is going to just sit in healthy space all the time. We're constantly moving throughout, like into average and maybe unhealthy space in our personality. Again, the self-awareness gives us a choice. If we see we're acting badly, then we can make a change. So I've shared before about here, specifically about the uncertainty with our youngest Porter's, my pregnancy and then his birth, and he had a defect that was serious, and we had to wait for genetic testing, and the reason for that defect was potentially fatal. And so in those weeks where we waited for the testing, that was what we were waiting to find out. This is like the height of a stressful moment in my life. And within my own number and my inability to access my feelings, I mask it with anger. Anger is like my go-to. And I know sometimes I say that and people are like, ugh, but don't worry, I'm good with it. Like, I'm used to it. It doesn't bother me. So my personality is not going to give me a lot in this situation. I can't just rage out, like that can only take me so far. And so intuitively I shift to 5. And in that shift, I'm given a gift of slowing down, assessing what's really needed, gathering information about what's going on. And in an unhealthy version of 5, I sequester myself and I cut everyone off. In that time, I had really strong community at branches, in fact. And I had really strong community outside of branches, like a really strong friend group that we were living life with, raising our kids with, and I shut down. I don't think that's what God had for me. And the people that did know, I asked them not to approach me and talk about it because I didn't want to feel the feelings that were in me and I couldn't have stopped them. And so I isolated. And don't get me wrong, I needed that shift to 5 to take care of myself and to do what needed to be done in that moment. But now I have an opportunity, because of what I know about my personality and because of how I can see myself in real time shifting in a stressful situation. I can choose to just pick the high behaviors, the healthy behaviors that 5 has to offer me and take care of myself in that without cutting everyone off and shrinking my already small circle. All of this is happening to us all the time. We're just running on autopilot. We are intuitively shifting. God designed us perfectly, just the way we are. And God is calling, I think, God is calling us a little higher. I don't think God can fully do a work in us that he has for us without our cooperation. If we can't name it, how are we going to cooperate with God? And, while breaking those crayons now is just a cute story we can all laugh about, I can tell you no one wants to be in a relationship with a 40-something who breaks her crayons in an act of defiance or dominance. That's for sure not working for me anymore. So when I'm operating from a place purely of personality, I'm missing out on a lot of what God has for me. I can get caught in a loop, and I'm ignoring my need for balance. How can we stretch ourselves and tap into our most authentic connections with God without knowing ourselves and identifying our areas for growth? The fundamentals of growth are self-knowledge. I cannot allow myself to fall into these automatic and habitual patterns of behavior. Then I don't know when to surrender. My friend used to say, well, isn't it okay if I just put a pretty little bow on it in regards to her behavior? And I think that's a perfect way to disguise my motives, to put a pretty little bow on it. I'm helping you, I'm serving you, and then I don't have to look at my motives. I found this, I was like thinking about it this morning, and you can put up the scripture verse. I read this book not that long ago, What If Jesus Was Serious About Prayer? And it's just so perfect under the chapter of, if Jesus was serious, then prayer is also a discipline of self-awareness. The prayer of examine, when properly understood, is intended to reveal the truth within us. It is not a test, at least not in the pass or fail sense. Instead, it is the uncovering of hidden or forgotten things so that we may engage God truthfully. And I think that is some serious wisdom. And I think that the Enneagram invites me into that space. Psalm 139, 1 through 10. Lord, you have seen what is in my heart. You know all about me. You know when I sit down and when I get up. You know what I'm thinking, even though you are far away. You know when I go out to work and when I come back. You know exactly how I live. Lord, even before I speak a word, you know all about it. You are all around me, behind me, and in front of me. You hold me safe in your hand. I'm amazed at how well you know me. It's more than I can understand. How can I get away from your spirit? Where can I go to escape from you? If I go up to the heavens, you are there. If I lie down in the deepest parts of the earth, you are also there. Suppose I were to rise with the sun in the east. Suppose I travel to the west where it sinks into the ocean. Your hand would always be there to guide me. Your right hand would still be holding me close. God knows. He already knows all the stuff. He already knows our motives. Why hide it from ourselves? You know, I used to pray in a way that I thought God might like me to pray. Like, I wasn't even cussing, you guys. It's crazy. I think that God welcomes me as I am, and he knows sometimes I cuss. So today I feel like I can connect with God in a more authentic way to who I am. And trust me when I say God dishes it right back. And you might not need it as harsh as I do, but sometimes he's like, girl, you better show up. And he uses a cuss word. But that's just for me, because he loves me so much. You know, all of this, and the way that I connect with God and the way that I love God has been enhanced over and over and over because of what the Enneagram showed me about myself. And next week, I get to talk about what it shows us about other people. And man, that's a game changer. Because I think we can love people. I like to say, you know, when people say, oh, love others or treat others the way you want to be treated, most of you guys don't want to be treated the way I want to be treated, to be honest. I think it might serve all of us if we treat others the way that they would like to be treated. And there's a lot of wisdom that the Enneagram has to show us in that aspect. So I am going to invite the worship team back up, but I'm going to say a prayer for us. This is called the welcoming prayer. Gently become aware of your body and your interior state. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I welcome everything that comes to me in this moment because I know it is for my healing. I welcome thoughts, feelings, emotions, persons, situations, and conditions. I let go of my desire for security. I let go of my desire for approval. I let go of my desire for control. I let go of my desire to change any situation, condition, person, or myself. I open to the love and presence of God and the healing action and grace within. Amen.